It is cannabis news. It is the end of the long week here at the Marijuana Times. MarijuanaTimes.org, as always, is what is presenting the show, or whom is presenting the show, or who is presenting the show, whichever you prefer. Today, we are talking about being close to a vote on actual cannabis legislation in the federal Congress of the United States. Also, what a former FDA Commissioner has to say about marijuana, and some recommendations from Leafly about some things you should think about when it comes to home growing, beginners home growing when it comes to cannabis. By the way, I don't think I mentioned that I am your host, Joe Klare. It is September 20th, 2019. We're going to talk about all of that awesome stuff. But first, of course, cannabis news is brought to you by Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. Make sure you check out Natureside if you're a cannabis grower in a state where it is legal. You don't want to use banned pesticides. No matter what you're growing, if it's something that someone's going to be ingesting, you want to put icky, yucky chemicals on there. You want Natureside, which is neither icky nor yucky. That's right. Nature-side.com. Proud sponsor of cannabis news. Please go check them out because they are awesome. This first story by yours truly at MarijuanaTimes.org. Are we close to a vote on actual marijuana legislation in Congress? It seems that way. I saw the news today that they are the bill H.R. 1595 in the House, the Secure and Fair Enforcement Banking Act, otherwise known as the Safe Banking Act, is on the calendar next week for a floor vote in the United States House of Representatives. Will be a momentous, monumental. I don't know. It'd be an amazing thing, a milestone, if you will, when it comes to cannabis law reform. It has over 200 co-sponsors in the House. The Senate version now has, last I saw, 33 sponsors for the legislation, which is S-1200 in the Senate. Majority Leader Steny Hoyer's office had let it loose that they were going to do this before the end of the month. Now it seems it's on the calendar for next week, so there will be an actual vote on it. Not everyone is happy. There's a group of civil rights organizations that includes the ACLU and the Drug Policy Alliance. They sent a letter to the Democratic leadership in the House on September 17th. It says, quote, in part at least, since the start of the 116th Congress, we've expressed concern to House leadership, the House Financial Services Committee, and member offices that if the banking bill moved to the floor before broader reform, it would jeopardize comprehensive marijuana reform. Therefore, we have pushed for a conversation among advocates, committee leadership, and House leadership to formulate a plan for moving marijuana legislation in a way that is comprehensive and does not result in carve-outs for the industry and leave behind impacted communities. In other words, they want something like the MORE Act to be considered first in the House before the banking bill, even though the banking bill seems to be farther along. It seems to have the best chance of passing, the best chance of getting a victory in this fight, and relieving a lot of marijuana businesses of problems they have with credit unions and banks not taking their money. They have cash. All sorts of issues arise from that, security and otherwise. And look, as I said in the article, I'm all for comprehensive reform. Yes, that's awesome. But when you're sitting here and the first ever vote's coming up and you're sitting on 0 victories, and people say, well, it's not a game. It's not. Well, it kind of is. Yeah, you have the momentum. You want to keep the momentum. You want to get as much as you can when you're able to. The government just doesn't give your freedoms back to you. You have to fight for them every step of the way. And whatever order you have to do that in, that's the order you have to do that in. But to pull this back and not vote on it and then talk about comprehensive reform, that just means nothing's going to get voted on. Delaying action in favor of talking is almost never the right course of action, if you will. But, as I often say, in my own very passive-aggressive, humble way, I'm just a lowly video podcast host, news writer guy. I'm not the benevolent leadership of our federal Congress, which decides so many aspects of our daily life that is absolutely none of their business. This is just one example. So We'll see. We'll see if something happens next week. See if there's a vote. If it passes, all that stuff, of course, will bring you the news no matter what happens right here on Cannabis News. This next story is from Politico.com. Former FDA Commissioner says feds need to regulate marijuana, a.k.a. legalize. It's time for the federal government to regulate marijuana sensibly so it can assess the medical value of a plant whose use has skyrocketed as states legalize or decriminalize it. Former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb said in a speech obtained by Politico. He said, if we believe that cannabis has medical potential, we should enable suitable research rather than bypass these norms through wholesale legalization. It was during the Pellegrino Award luncheon at Samford University School of Pharmacy. Those regulations could include rescheduling the plant, which remains, of course, on the Drug Enforcement Agencies. A place like Politico should know, and I would think they would know, this the Drug Enforcement Administration, not the Drug Enforcement Agency. DEA does not stand for Drug Enforcement Agency. It stands for Drug Enforcement Administration. I know it's a little thing, and I don't expect like a blogger or some dude in his basement to understand, but Politico would kind of know little details like that, it would seem. Those little details add authenticity to your story. Little writing 101 there. In a very condescending manner. As much condescension as I can muster up at the time. So anyway, it's, I don't know. As I always say, jump on the bandwagon, whatever, former FDA commissioner. If you're saying we should legalize or we should research, and it's going to take legalization to do that, because he's saying, well, we should do research and then decide on legalizing it, but the lack of legalization hampers the research. So how about we'll worry about legalization, and you guys worry about research, and we'll see who gets done first. It'll be a fun little race. Do we have legalization first, or do we have a sufficient amount of research first, whatever that means? I hate that. I hate that. When they say, there's not enough research. Well, what is the suitable amount? What is the level we can get to where these people are going to be like, well, that's a good amount of research. I like that. That hits the spot right there. Never. So go do your research. Yes. Studies, please. Trials, all that stuff. Absolutely. Go do that. We'll worry about legalization and getting it done as quickly as possible. I told researchers at the conference, quote, cannabis has been around a long time. There's been plenty of time to develop rigorous science to affirm its purported medical or medicinal benefits. He said the body evidence is thin, and the existing research would never pass muster with the Food and Drug Administration. Oh, wow. La-di-da. The agency, the administration, the apparatus, and the government that has approved drugs that kills tens of thousands of people every year, they are always telling us, well, you're not going to pass our standards. Well, everything that they've ever approved really wouldn't live up to the standards of cannabis. So I guess we're even. In any case, go do your research, man. Well, not him. Now he's a former FDA person, but whoever the FDA person is now, the FDA people, go do it. If you need legalization to open those floodgates, then we'll do that. If you don't, then go do it. Whatever. I don't care. Just go do it. Whatever you need to do it. That's your thing. That's your job. You're researchers. Go research. I'm all for research. But don't tell me that, well, we got to wait on legalization to do more than the 30,000 studies or whatever it is that have already been done on cannabis. No, we're done waiting. Shut up. Go do your research. Poindexter. Nerds. Go do your research. Nerds. We'll worry about the law. That's right. That was very authoritative, the way I said that this last story. It's from Leafly. 6 things every beginning cannabis home grower should know. According to Leafly, growing your own cannabis is an educational experience, Leafly says. It can be whatever you want it to be, a lifelong pursuit or a temporary diversion. As with any pursuit, you get out of it what you put in. Some of the things they say you should keep in mind when you're a beginning cannabis home grower, it's challenging. This shouldn't come as a surprise for anyone who's ever given cannabis cultivation a shot, but growing cannabis is hard. Sure, you can always leave a plant by your window or in a corner of your backyard, and maybe it'll get to flower, but you almost certainly end up with a handful of larfy, wispy, stem-heavy buds. Larfy. I've never heard that before. Larfy. Is that a marijuana slang term that I've been unaware of all this time? Or is this something this writer made up? And that makes me feel insecure. I've missed something. I miss Larfy. I feel bad. They say if your goal is to produce the kind of chunky frosted flower you see in magazines or at your favorite dispensary, you're going to have to commit, read some books, buy the necessary equipment, and prepare to put in some real effort. But once you've gotten a harvest or two under your belt, you'll start to find out the elements of cannabis cultivation that seemed overwhelming or confusing at first will start to come naturally. The type of mistakes you made early on fade away, and you learn what works for you. Also remember, more always doesn't mean better. More powerful lights, more nutrients, and more technology means more flower, right? Well, not necessarily. In fact, thinking more can often get you into trouble. Nutrient burn and nitrogen toxicity, which occur from nutrient overuse, can damage or even ruin an entire crop. Giving your plants too much light or putting them in the proximity to lights that are too powerful can damage leaves and compromise plant health. Details matter. There are a multitude of factors that play into cannabis growth and production, and many of them will be immediately apparent to the novice grower. Also, you can ask a friend for advice. Obviously, anybody who's grown before, there's YouTube tutorials and things like that, a friend online, whatever. Plenty of information. Also, remember, patience is everything. The most essential ingredient in any cannabis harvest is patience. Patience is what makes you stick with it through the initial challenges, and it's the safeguard to keep you from going overboard with excessive light or nutrients. It also ensures that you take the time to investigate little details like pest, disease, or poor yields, which can be the difference between success and failure. So there you go. If you want to learn more about what Leafly thinks you should know about home growing if you are a beginner, click the link in the description of this video. We link all of the stories we talk about in the description of the video in which they are discussed. It's very easy that way to keep everything straight. If you want to learn more about what I'm talking about, you just go click the link. Technology is amazing. As I said, it's the end of another week here at the Marijuana Times. Go have a great weekend. Be safe. All of that jazz. Check us out at marijuanatimes.org. Of course, click the video tab for this show. Thank you to Natureside, nature-side.com, and their organic, all-natural pesticides. They're a great sponsor of the show. Thanks to all of you who watch and listen every day or sporadically, or this is your first time. It doesn't matter. Welcome. Go share the video if you're watching a video, or the audio if you're listening to audio. Whatever. Share, rate, comment, like, all that stuff. Help us spread the truth about cannabis with this show. Thanks for watching and listening today, and we'll see you next week right here in Cannabis News.